What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Lifting Nomad. My name is Alex, and I just landed in Edinburgh in Scotland, and I'm gonna be here for the next little bit. And in this video, I wanna go through kind of my first impressions of the city, what it's like to stay here, the cost, the safety, all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, welcome back. If you are new to the channel, my name is Alex. Again, this is Lifting Nomad. All my content here is all about traveling with a balanced approach to fitness, enjoying some beers, enjoying some good food, while still getting to see the world. If that sounds interesting, that sounds like something that could be valuable to you, check out some of the other videos down below. But in this video, let's talk about Edinburgh specifically. It's my first time being in Scotland. Quick context, I've been to over 25 countries over the last few years, so I've gotten pretty used to getting a feel for new cities as I get settled in, as I'm staying in these neighborhoods, as I'm going out, as I'm eating food, as I'm going to the gyms. So this should not be anything different. I also do want to clarify, this is all relative to my experience as someone who has traveled quite a lot. I'm also here in the month of July, in the beginning of it during the Euros, which is supposed to be like the peak season of travel. It's supposed to be the best weather they get, despite the fact it's only being like 15 to 17 Celsius and still raining every single day. So one of the first things people talk about when they look at a destination is the affordability of it, the cost of it. I will say it has been fairly high. This is the perspective of a Canadian who's paying obviously Great British pounds. So like the pound to the CAD right now is not good. I'm sure any other Canadians watching this can agree. It's like 1.5 or more. So it's very, very expensive for us to come over here. So just innately the prices are pretty high. Generally, I would say for this time of year for a hotel, you're looking at least £100. All the costs in this video are going to be in pounds because I think that's the easiest way to describe it. Hostels, I was paying around 50 quid or pound a night for a bunk, which is pretty high as well. Like typically in like South America where I travel the most, I'm paying like anywhere from like $20 to $30, let's say, or even less in a lot of cases. So this was a lot higher than I was expecting. But I'm also coming during a very peak time and also during the Euros, which tends to be a high travel month or high travel period to begin with. Generally, from what I was able to see, I wasn't looking at longer term stays, which is typically what I do in a city. Like an Airbnb was around 150 a night, up to like 250 in a nicer place. I'm guessing if you stayed for a longer term and were able to negotiate a monthly rate or get a better discount, would have been a little bit cheaper, but I'm only here for 10 days in Scotland. So that was kind of the best deal I was able to get. Let's talk about food a little bit. Obviously, I am someone who likes to enjoy my food when I travel. Food and drink is a huge part of what makes me want to go see these places. I would say it is also fairly high. As someone who's also been to London and other parts of the UK before, where I was in Northern Ireland last year and then like the South, like Republic of Ireland last Canada Day as well, so this exact same time of year, I do think Scotland's been priced pretty high overall. Like breakfast, generally like £5 to £10. Lunch, I would say like at least 10 to 20 typically. Dinner, you're generally like 20 or higher depending on the restaurant, but that's like just a ballpark of what I would say of what I've experienced so far. Couple things have been pretty affordable. The trip from the airport back to my hostel, I'm staying in the Royal Mile, which is kind of like the mid-city center. A lot of tourist stuff going on. Anyone who's been here, if you've walked down the Royal Mile, it is chaotic pretty much all times of day. Pubs are full, patios are full, people are eating, people are drinking. There's like wizards dressed up giving Harry Potter tours. There's a lot to take in when I first got here coming from the airport. But with that said, I was able to get a round trip bus from the airport for £8 on it was called Air Link. I think they're kind of advertised really everywhere. As soon as you land and you're going through baggage, you'll start to see the advertisements literally in the airport. So that's what I would recommend. It takes like 25 minutes, 30 minutes to get into basically the central part of town. When I got there, I landed, I took the bus, and then immediately from the bus, I walked to my hostel. It took me like less than 5 minutes to get there. Very cheap, very easy, very simple. That's what I would recommend if you are flying into the Edinburgh airport and you're trying to get into the city center. I know they had the trams as well, but I think the bus overall was a little bit easier for me. In terms of like Ubers, taxis, that kind of thing, I'm not 100% sure because essentially Edinburgh is extremely walkable. You're basically divided into a couple of neighborhoods from like Newtown to Old Town. Between like Newtown and Old Town is typically where like the bars and the nightlife are. The Royal Mile is basically in the middle between the two. As you're walking around, you'll see it's it's basically like risen up in the middle where Royal Mile is, and then you're going to be walking down on both sides of it. That's generally what Edinburgh is like. It is very walkable, but it is very steep. So if you do have like mobility issues or you're not able to get around that well, it might be a little bit challenging. Maybe you're going to get some extra cardio in. For me, it was very, very walkable city, very easy to get around. Good street signage. The streets are like, you know, relatively easy to understand. I did also go over to West End, which is kind of an interesting area. It's where like the embassies and the consulates are for other countries. Kind of a bougie residential area with not a lot else going on. I was there on a Sunday as well, so obviously like a lot of the business side of it wasn't running, but I would guess that's a very like uppity kind of posh neighborhood by the feel and the vibe of it. Took me maybe like 15-20 minutes to get there, so again, like super walkable. From there I went up to a little bit to the north of Edinburgh called Stockbridge, which was kind of like an interesting place. The botanical gardens were there, which are really, really beautiful. I always typically try to get into some fresh air and some nature when I'm in a new city. This was no exception. There was a lot of locals in this park with their dogs and like people tanning and going on like wine dates and stuff like that on a Sunday afternoon. It was very good weather while I was there. So it was like sunny, maybe like 20-21 degrees. So it was definitely a reason for people to get out and enjoy the city. Outside of that, like the downtown, I guess you would call it, of Stockbridge, had a kind of an interesting like hipstery kind of vibe of like patios and cafes along the main streets, some shopping and a lot of that. Very busy, very good energy, a lot of people around, a lot of people enjoying the sunshine. It was a good place to go just for a walk through it. I typically don't shop that much when I travel, so I didn't go into any of the stores, but overall it was a good vibe and a very good place. It felt good to be around there. I don't know, you ever go to those places where you feel like you're just happy and joyful to be around? There's people walking their dogs, there's people playing footy matches, there's just like people on patios having pints. Like it just is like a very relaxed, enjoyable environment, and that's how I would describe Stockbridge. I wasn't staying in this neighborhood, like I said, but again, it took me, this was a little bit further. I walked from West End to Stockbridge, but I would say it probably took me 30 minutes to get there and probably 45 minutes to get back to the Royal Mile, which is like kind of the downtown central area. The bus stops there, the train station's there, everything is really around the Royal Mile. And you know, it's a cool place to go. I probably wouldn't spend my whole time there, but it's you know, it's a fun time to go see it. I went and did one of the Harry Potter tours because I am an ultra nerd at heart, and it did start and end on the Royal Mile as well, so really close to my hostel. Highly recommend doing this if you are in the city. I think it was worth it. It cost me like 30 Canadian dollars, and it lasts like 2.5 hours. She walks us around. It starts just off the Royal Mile at the National Museum of Scotland, and then you kind of walk through Greyfriars Kirkyard, which is the graveyard where J.K. Rowling got a lot of inspiration for some of the names and some of the characters in Harry Potter. There's a McGonagall, there's a Tom Riddle, or Tom Riddle, which is, I'm assuming, where she got the Tom Riddle from. There's a lot of really cool things to see in there, and I think she, our tour guide did an excellent job of kind of keeping everyone involved and being very enthusiastic about the topic. So if you are like me and at all a Harry Potter nerd, I would recommend checking this out. It was definitely worth it. Going back to kind of the going outside of things after that, I also tried, I tried to do one of these pub crawls, and this is kind of where it takes me on a bit of a tangent. The vibe and the nightlife here has been a little bit more tame than I was expecting. And again, I'm pretty much objectively comparing this to Ireland last year at this exact same time. Literally these 2 weeks that I am here in Scotland, I was here in Ireland. I was in Ireland last year at the same time. And I'm also here during the Euros, which I would think would be a busier time than normal, but it's relatively tame. Like for reference, when I was in Dublin last year, 7 nights a week, there was a pub crawl running that had 50 to 75 people. You could go to like any of the Temple Bar areas, and the pubs are full, the patios are full, there's people everywhere. It was just like, you know, it was summertime, it's peak tourist season. And as far as I've seen so far in Edinburgh, there's people around everywhere, don't get me wrong, but not to the same level of like, that pub crawl I booked here in Edinburgh, it got canceled because there was not enough people on it, which I've done probably 25 or so pub crawls in my life, and I've never seen one get canceled, especially in a Euro summer, to not having enough people. So I was kind of surprised by that. Maybe I just was on a bad night, or Sunday nights people don't go out, but like I said, when I was in Dublin, I went out on a Monday night, a Wednesday night, and it was still like vibing, so a little bit interesting to see that. Now, with that being said, there are still like some really cool patios that I did enjoy, and I've had a good time here, and there's lots of people in the hostel. I think my dorms have been full every time I've been there. I was just expecting like a little bit more of an ambitious nightlife, so maybe it's like been bad weather, or maybe it's just a slower year than normal. I am actually going to stay in Edinburgh for a few more days and hopefully going to try again and see, because the pub crawl got canceled, I was able to push it to a further date. So we'll see if more people show up on round 2. But so far, it's definitely been pretty tame. Now, speaking of pub crawls, let's talk about the cost of drinks. In my experience, generally, like a pint is anywhere from like 5 to 8 pounds, depending on what kind of beer you're drinking, where you're getting it from. Pretty average from like I come from Toronto, which is definitely a higher cost of living city. Not any more expensive than that, but if you are trying to save money, I would say getting pints at the convenience stores and the corner stores, very, very simple and very cheap. That's likely your best bet if you are trying to maybe drink on a budget, you're staying in a hostel trying to save some money. That would be definitely the better way to do it, because going to drink at pubs and eat at pubs is definitely gonna put a dent in your wallet. In terms of tours and activities, I already talked about the Hogwarts tour. I'm also doing the Hogwarts Express train, the Jacobite steam train journey on Friday. That's gonna be on a different video, as I wanted this to be just my first impressions. That one is pretty expensive. Like, I paid over 200 Canadian dollars for it. That also includes the ticket for the train ride, and it's like a 14-hour tour versus like a 2-hour walk around the city that I paid for the Greyfriars Kirkyard. So that would be my intention if you are like looking to expend a little bit more money and do something cool. Hopefully the steam train is cool. We'll find out on Friday when I get there. Otherwise, I think like just talking about the safety of it is important, as a lot of people do consider safety when they go to places. I would say it's been good. I would have expected it to feel a little bit more safe, and it's hard to explain like safety relatively depending on how much you've traveled or where you've been before. But like I said, I do spend a lot of my time in South America that is innately very unsafe, and I will say it just kind of feels a little dodgy. There's not I haven't had any bad interactions or like pressured situations, but there's definitely less like police presence than I typically would expect, especially in like, you know, like a world-class city. This is the capital city of Scotland. Like, I thought it would be, you know, maybe a little bit more cleaner, a little bit more safer. Not to say you're gonna have any problems, but just overall, it kind of feels a little edgier than I would have expected. Again, not to say you're gonna have any issues, but this is just like my first impressions of walking around the streets. I will say the other people that are here, like the locals and people in restaurants and bars, are super, super friendly, super welcoming and helpful. So anytime I've looked for like a recommendation or like asked for other things to do in that area, it's been very straightforward, and they've provided me with like great recommendations. So I would say if you are looking to come here, you know, chat with your bartender, chat with your server, chat with people at the hostel, and you're gonna get good recommendations. Overall, I would say if you are coming here, try and stay in the Old Town. Very, very walkable. And again, if you're taking a train anywhere else in Scotland, the main like Waverley Station, I think it's called. I wanted to say like Wizards of Waverley Place. Waverley Station is where like all the trains go from out of Edinburgh. So I took that over to Glasgow, and that's what I would recommend, is staying in Old Town. Very walkable, lots to do, lots going on. And then a lot of the main sort of tours and attractions leave from there as well. So it can kind of make it easy to get around. Yeah, overall, this is my experience, my first 2 days in Edinburgh. I think it's been fun so far. I'm optimistic that when I come back next weekend, maybe it's gonna be a change of vibe, and we're able to like go out on these pub crawls and maybe meet some new people and make some friends. So far, it's been a little bit more tame. It's been nice, and the food's been good, and the drinks have been good. I was just expecting a little bit more nightlife so far, to be honest, but we'll see what happens when I get back. But overall, that is going to be my first impressions of traveling to Edinburgh. Hopefully this video was useful in 2024 for anyone who's considering coming out here. If it was, feel free to leave a like or comment in the section below. Always helps the algorithm. As always, my name is Alex. Welcome back to Lifting Nomad. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.